guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with an exciting video of some enemies to lovers romances. This is one of my favorite tropes. I love it when the hero and the heroine just like cannot stand each other, but there's obviously some attraction simmering underneath that hate, and it makes them hate each other even more. And then a lot of times they're forced to be around each other, and I just love all the vibes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to my favorite enemies to lovers romances. But before we get started, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Megan Quinn. The Way I Hate Him by Megan Quinn is her newest release, and this one, obviously from the title, is a hate to love, enemies to lovers romance, but it's also some of my absolute favorite tropes. So I'm so excited to read this one because it is also age gap and small town, which you guys know those are some of my favorite things to read in a romance, and her last one that I loved was an age gap too, so very excited. The heroine in this one just failed her last semester of college, and she goes back to her hometown in order to be comforted by her boyfriend, and he literally just breaks up with her. She wants to get retaliation. She's super angry, so she steals a box of his most prized possessions, which he had stolen. And she wants to return them to the person that he stole them from, and instead of just like leaving it with a note, she's caught in the act and the crime is pinned on her. So this guy thinks that she stole his stuff. She was not the one who did it, but she's got the stuff and she can't really talk her way out of it. He also just happens to be her brother's nemesis. She's definitely attracted to him. He offers to either turn her into the police for stealing his stuff or having her work it off. She ends up deciding to work for him, so we got some forced proximity as well, and obviously starts to not hate him as much. It does get a little tricky though because it is her brother's nemesis, so he's obviously not going to want his sister falling for his nemesis, so it's just all kinds of forbidden. And I love the age gap aspect. I love the small town aspect. This one has everything I love. Make sure you check this one out. Thank you so much to Megan Quinn for sponsoring this video and having a book that literally I'm so excited to read because it has so many tropes I'm obsessed with, and we're gonna go ahead and get to some more hate to love romances. One that recently came out is On the Shore by Laura Pavlov. A lot of these are very similar to The Way I Hate Him because they are also small town romances, and I love that in a romance. So this one's small town. It's book 3 in the series. She is a reporter and he is a famous football player, and the end of book 2 ended with him calling her out for following him into the bathroom and basically getting her fired from her job. And so she hates him. She absolutely cannot stand him, and she's like, he got me fired, he's ruined my life, I have to move back home to their small town. And he is living in that small town, so he is between jobs. He is trying to figure out who he wants to play for in the next season, and it's like the next big story, and he keeps on running into her around town, and she is like, everybody has to hate him, I hate him, he ruined my life. And he tries to make amends. He does feel really bad. He's not a bad guy, and she literally does not want anything to do with him, and so she is so angry whenever he's around, but he is trying to make up for it, and that means that he is offering her the big break of his story of who he gets to play with. So then it's forced proximity where they are all around each other because he is letting her have a story on him, and so they like go on runs together and hang out and kind of talk really about his life and fall in love. So very hate to love because he ruined her job and she resents him for it, and then slowly breaks down and starts to be okay with it because he had the wrong impression of her in the beginning, and that's why he hated her. So a very good hate to love romance. Then I have Be Still My Heart by Emily McIntyre and Sav R. Miller. I recently read this for my Patreon book club and I had so much fun reading it. I do think it dragged a little in the middle because it is a romantic suspense, so it had a little bit of a slow part in it, but I still give this one 4 stars, so I want to recommend it. The hero is very reclusive. He doesn't let anybody in. He was a former, I think, Navy SEAL, something where he was doing stuff, and now he's back in his hometown, and it's very like spooky fall vibes. It's an island. There's a spooky lighthouse involved. There is a history of spooky things happening on the island as well, and so he runs this like lobster boat, and he goes out on his boat in the morning and finds a body. And so the heroine is actually a detective and specializes in serial killers. She literally just got done being kidnapped by a serial killer and taking on a new, this is her first job after that, and they clash so much in the beginning because she immediately is suspicious of him, and he is kind of like their #1 suspect, person of interest, because it was his boat and the body was found there, and he is not helpful whatsoever. He does not want to let them search his boat. He doesn't want them on his property, in his house whatsoever. So they're like, what are you hiding? And he's just someone who does not like his privacy invaded. So he's like, nothing, you're just in my way. And so they're constantly bickering and bantering and on opposite sides of this case because he does not want to help. He's like, just get out of my way and figure it out yourselves. And obviously there is simmering attraction there that kind of builds that hate to love relationship where they're angry that they're liking each other, so they're even more mean to each other, but then they obviously can't stop their attraction. So I really like this. It's definitely a hate to love romance and has some romantic suspense involved because you got to figure out who killed that person, and more bodies start popping up. So who's the bad guy? I have mentioned this book a lot lately, but I love it and it fits this video perfectly. So it's another small town romance, which is One Touch by Lena Hendricks. This one starts out because the heroine dated his brother. So she wants nothing to do with him and he's kind of coming in on her territory. So she had graduated college. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. So she moves in with like an aunt or something and they need to renovate her house. And she's like, I can do it by myself. I do not need help. And the brother comes in and he's like, you need help. My best friend has this construction company. Like, he is going to help you renovate the house. And she's like, I don't need help. So she is adamant she doesn't need help. She is always in the way when our hero comes around to try to help fix up the house. And there's a lot of moments where he's like, I told you so, but like doesn't say it because he's a lot nicer. This is more of a one-sided hate to love because she didn't really like the person she was with her boyfriend who cheated on her. And so like she's very resentful towards that and just hates him for being associated with her ex who was a horrible person. And so they slowly start to like get to know each other and she's understanding him more. Lots of forced proximity as well because they are working on this construction project together. They have to go to a road trip together. I loved it. The audiobook for this one's great as well, so really good. Then another one of my favorites that if you have not read this yet, you have to, and that is 5 Rounds by Nikki Castle. This one is so hate to love, enemies to lovers because the heroine cannot stand Tristan and he is her best friend's best friend. So her best friend lives with him. They've always butted heads. They've always just bicker and banter and fight whenever they're around each other, but something happens with her apartment and she can't get a new one for a couple weeks. And so her best friend is going on a business trip and says, you can have my room and room with Tristan. And so she accepts because she has literally nowhere to go and they have to be roommates for a few weeks. And obviously things start heating up for them and things get very emotional between them, which I really like, but they really like to push each other's buttons and take the like hate to love to a very fiery, passionate level. And it was a lot of fun and it has to do with MMA. So I really, really love this. And she hasn't liked him because he like insulted her when they first met. So he likes to push her buttons a lot. Then I have one I haven't talked about in a while and that is Honey Trap by Tate James. This one is like literal enemies because she's an assassin sent to kill him. It's a polyamorous relationship. So the one relationship isn't hate to love. It's more like he is literally obsessed with her and stalking her. He works for the same organization she works for and she's put on basically this like death mission where nobody has been able to kill this guy. And anybody he's even suspicious of, he just murders. And so she is trying to like infiltrate his life, shows up at a party and he's immediately suspicious and he's like, you're trying to kill me. But she's so good at her job that she puts on this facade and he does not know whether to believe her or not. So she's basically held prisoner on his like compound island and they start falling for each other. But she is still trying to kill him in the end. And then it's like, oh my god, but like do they kill each other because they're starting to fall for each other. So this is like literal, they're enemies on different lines where they're supposed to kill each other and they start falling for each other. Meanwhile, this guy back home is still obsessed with her and stalking her and trying to save her. So I love this one. Book 2 was good too. I have not finished the series yet, but check this one out. Then I have Tattered Stars by Catherine Cowles, and this is serious hate to love because the hero despises the heroine because her father kidnapped his sister when they were younger. His sister actually was found because of the heroine, like she turned her father in, but he thinks that she is the reason like his family has all these problems and that his sister is still very deeply traumatized from what happened to her. So she is back in town on her family's property and she's pretty much disowned by her family because they are kind of like cult-like. They're like doomsday preppers kind of thing. She is like, I don't want anything to do with that and they already hate her for turning her dad in. So she is back on their property because she wants to open an animal sanctuary and he is like, no way are you back in town. You've already ruined my life once. You are not going to ruin my life again. And he is so mean to her. But the rest of the town is much more accepting, especially his family. And so he eventually comes around to it, especially because someone starts sabotaging her animal sanctuary and everything she's trying to build. And so then he's like comes around more and is more protective of her. And then they start falling in love. And I really liked how he was just adamant not to like her because of their past, but slowly accepts her and lets her in, and it was so good. There is a mystery going on about who is sabotaging her as well, and this is the start of an amazing series that I would highly recommend. And the last one I have is On Thin Ice by L.A. Cotton. I've talked about this a lot too, but it is so good and you have to read it if you haven't yet. This one again is kind of one-sided where it is more the hero who hates the heroine because he thinks that she's just a puck bunny. He's like, you are around to try to sleep with me and I don't want anything to do with you. Like, you are a horrible person. he obviously doesn't know anything about her, and she is best friends with his best friend's girlfriend. So he is a hockey player, and he immediately just like really pushes her away and makes her not feel welcome. And then they actually had to be around each other because he has a brother who is on the autism spectrum, and the heroine volunteers at the same place his brother goes to. So he sees her and he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, I volunteer here. And so he slowly uncovers different things about her and slowly starts letting her in, even though he feels really pressured to take care of his family and try to make it to the NHL. And it's a really great college romance. I really liked it. And again, we have that kind of misconception of one another that caused us to hate each other, and slowly unraveling like the truth about each other and liking each other. Those are some enemies to lovers / more hate to love romances for you to check out. And make sure you check out The Way I Hate Him by Megan Quinn for an age gap, small town enemies to lovers, but also brothers enemy, which I love that trope because it adds a little bit of a more forbidden nature to it, as well as some forced proximity because she does have to work for him and she's forced to be around him all the time. So make sure you check out The Way I Hate Him, and thank you so much to Megan Quinn for sponsoring this video. Let me know your favorite hate to love or enemies to lovers romances in the comments down below, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.